Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is your boy Spooky back with a fresh haircut, not haircut, fresh hairstyle, courtesy of Walmart dyeing kits. So today, as you can tell by the title and everything, we're going to be talking about how to beat nits at 5NL. So why this video specifically? Well, I've been playing 5NL. I recently deposited, around the time of making this YouTube channel, I recently deposited $200 onto ACR, and I started running pretty bad, so I just dropped my stakes down to 5NL, and I've been grinding it up, and I've just been winning consistently and learning a lot. And the point of this channel is to help you guys out. So if you are playing 5NL, 10NL, 2NL, these principles are all going to be about the same, even maybe as high as 25NL and 50NL. Like, all of the micro strategies, they're going to be pretty similar, but it's just going to be like you'll see less of the really bad players as you move up in stakes. But that's not to say that this exact type of player that I'm talking about isn't going to be prevalent in your stakes specifically. And so I'm going to be giving you some really good advice. I'm going to be putting some effort into the editing and everything, so if you could just please drop a like. That would mean a lot to me, because this video is going to be really helpful, and the coming videos are also going to be really helpful. So please drop a like, please drop a subscription if you aren't subscribed already, and also let me know in the comments how I could improve these videos and what you would like to see more of or less of. Let's get into it. So, beating the nits at 5NL. So this is going to be an important video because there are a lot of nits at 5NL, and this is one of the most common people you're going to play against. So first of all, let's define what a nit is. A nit is someone who's scared to put money in the pot. And how do we spot nits? We look for someone with low VP, low aggression factor, and they generally just don't bet without the nuts, which is, if you're not paying really close attention, you're not going to be able to notice that last one. But if they have a really low VP, low aggression factor, they never 3-bet unless, their 3-bet percentage is under 5%. These are the kinds of stats that you can look at and immediately tell that someone is going to be really nitty and they're not going to be playing hands without really strong equity. And the next note is that if you look at my screen, my gameplay, the nits are going to be the people who I label as blue. So if you've seen my color coding video, these are people who are tight and passive. So again, if they are betting, then you know that they've got something good, or they're just tired of our baloney and they're playing back at us. But I don't think that happens very often at 5NL. So. And let's get into some stats. So I'm going to talk about some stats that you might see with the nits. So what you may see with nits is that they are going to have a VP that's going to be pretty low. Now, just a warning, I'm saying all of these stats off of the top of my head. Unfortunately, I don't have gameplay recorded recently where I can just look at all these stats and pull up some numbers, but these stats are going to be pretty accurate. So first of all, their VP is going to be 15 and under, so that means they don't play a lot of hands, again, unless they have good equity, so something that's going to have strong post flop potential. So they're just going to be playing a small percentage of hands. Next, their 3-bet is going to be 10 and under, so 10 is even kind of high for an actual nit at 5NL. You might see something like 5 and under and even 0. If you just sat down with someone and you've played 50 hands with them and they have a 3-bet of 0, you can pretty much guarantee that they're a nit. But that's not a guarantee, because I said pretty much guarantee because they could be aggressive in other ways. They could be aggressive post flop and just never 3-bet. So that's kind of why you have to keep these things in mind. It's not so cut and dry as what is their 3-bet percentage, obviously. Another one is going to be full to 3-bet is going to be really high, so maybe something as high as 50% or higher. So sometimes nits are still willing to open hands, but they will full to 3-bet very often, because especially at 5NL, people are not 3-betting light hardly ever, and that's just another way we can take advantage of them. and their fold to C bet is going to be really high, maybe 50 plus. Again, this is kind of a number I'm just like pulling out of thin air, but you can rest assured that 50 plus fold to C bet is going to be like fairly easy to beat, as long as you are cognizant of board texture. So a high fold to C bet is something we like to see in nits, and then a high fold to steal, which is, if you don't know, steal is someone raising your blinds and you folding without what's the word, like contesting it. So this is actually a stat I only recently started using, so I don't know what good stats are, but what I would recommend is that if you're using PokerTracker and you're not using fold to steal, I would add that on somewhere to your stats, and you can just use your own deduction abilities as you move forward. But keep in mind that if someone folds to steal a lot and they also have all these other stats that are really low or really high, I guess, then that is indicative that they are a nit and we are going to crush them. So now let's talk about strategy when it comes to actually beating someone with these stats. Basically, just to lay out our strategy, it's going to be that we want to abuse all of their bad habits by opening up our range and being more aggressive. So the interesting thing about poker is that people have a lot of different tendencies, and if you want to have like simplistic thinking, you can break them up into like maybe 4 different categories like I did in my color coding video. But fortunately, you can exploit people in a lot of different ways in poker, and while it's easy to just call someone a nit and then you kind of have this general strategy, the good news is that they can be exploited in like many different ways. So just generally speaking, we're going to exploit them by being more aggressive because fundamentally they are scared to put money in the pot, and so the fundamental way to beat them is to put a lot of pressure on them. So this is going to be continuing, this is all tied in together, but this is basically going to be how we're abusing their stats that we just went over. So when someone has a high fold to steal, the strategy is very simple. We're just going to open up our range in late position. If, like, for example, if we're if in our seat when we're on the button, the 2 seats in front of us have a high fold to steal, obviously the play is to open up our range quite wide from the button, because we're just going to be getting a lot of free blinds. That should be pretty obvious. So the next thing that we can do is we can 3-bet wider. So for example, if we are again in late position and the people behind us don't seem to be like super action, what we can do is start opening up our 3-bet range. And so let's say someone opens, whatever under the gun +2 is. I don't know my positions off the top of my head, but let's say someone opens in that position and we're like in the cutoff. What we can do is start 3-betting lighter than usual. So let's say our usual cutoff range for 3-betting is like, I don't know, king queen suited. That's pretty tight. But now we can start 3-betting something like king jack offsuit, and the reason for that is because we may look at this nitty player who has, maybe they have a decent opening range, which is like maybe 15%, but then their fold to 3-bet is like 50%. So that means that they're opening a good amount of hands, but they also just do not defend their opens very wide. And for that reason, we can open up our 3-bet range and do that very profitably. So hopefully that wasn't like too convoluted or complicated. So the next thing that we're going to do to implement in our strategy is that we're going to raise and then C-bet disconnected boards at a very high frequency. And so what this means is that if we play with someone, let's say we raise in the cutoff again and a nit calls from the big blind and the board comes like, I don't know, just a standard board like king deuce deuce, very disconnected, and it hits our range really strong. Even if we have jack 10 offsuit, this is a perfect time to C-bet because as we already described, someone who's nitty probably has a high fold to C-bet ratio. And so our perceived range is much stronger than theirs, and they're also probably not adjusting to us at this point in time, especially if we just started off the session. And so this is kind of a slam dunk C bet, or even something like we have like ace 5, like ace 5 suited or something, suited or non-suited, it doesn't even matter. This is just another slam dunk continuation bet. But let's look at an even different example, because king high is obviously, you know, a good one to C bet. A different one might be like 10 deuce deuce. So we have like pretty much, if we have ace 5 offsuit, all we have is like ace high and, you know, backdoor straight. We've missed pretty bad, but the thing is that someone who has a high fold to C bet and low aggression factor, they're probably not going to play back at us very often unless they actually have it. And so they probably just miss very often, and they're probably just going to fold. And so this is why we like to raise a lot and C bet a lot, because we're just going to take down these small pots quite often. So one of the last things I want to talk about in terms of implementing a strategy against nits is that if a nit has a 3-bet range rate of under something like 5%, it's actually totally fine to make very big folds against these guys, which is you know, it's something that I've talked about in past videos where you don't want to have dogmatic thinking. I think I talked about that in the poker improvement strategy video, but you really don't want to have dogmatic thinking. And what I mean by that is someone might tell you like never fold kings pre-flop, or you always have to flat ace queen to a 3-bet, or I mean a 4-bet, and you always have to flat queen queen versus a 3-bet. But that's just, I just don't agree with that, because if you're playing a nit who has a 3-bet rate of under like 5%, how often is queen queen good here? It's very rarely ever good. Like at best you're flipping against ace king. Now there's a difference between, you know, folding because you think you have the worst hand and like trying to set mine because they give you a good price. Okay, you should do that because you want to stack someone who has aces. But if you think you're going to win the hand because queens are the best hand, just because the book tells you have to do that, or like no one folds queens to a single 3-bet, I just don't agree with that logic. Like I said, if someone has a 3-bet rate of under 5% over like several hundred, like 100 plus hands, I'm probably just going to fold queens to them and just like not worry about it and think about the next hand. So I recommend you do something similar, or at the very least consider what I'm saying. You know, next time you're in this situation where you get 3-bet by someone who's really tight, just consider folding. Ask yourself, am I going to keep playing this hand because that's what the book tells me to do, or is it because I don't want to let go of queens pre-flop because I'm just like addicted to them? Or consider what I'm saying, which is, do I think I have the best hand? Probably not. So I think it's as simple as that. So now we're going to be talking about some things that we want to look out for when we're implementing this strategy, because strategy is all great and dandy, but you know, poker is a fluid game. It changes over time. As people see what you're doing, they're going to adjust. And it's not as simple as, you know, unfortunately, poker isn't as simple as just implement strategy and win. But, you know, that's just the game. So it's like, it's not fortunate or unfortunate. You know, that's just what it is. So the reason I say this is because people are going to start playing back at us if we do this too much and we're doing it predictably. And so I'm just going to talk about some things that we have to look out for. So the first thing is that, like I said, people will eventually start playing back if you're predictable. They'll start doing things like check raising flops and 3-betting you pre-flop if you're opening too much, or they'll start 4-betting you if you're 3-betting too much. So after this happens, we simply have to adjust and just respect that they are capable of playing back. Now the good news is, since we're talking about 5NL and the micros, you're playing with a bunch of people who just like aren't that good at poker, and they're not going to be adjusting very much. especially if they're nits. They're just going to be scared to adjust. They're not, for whatever reason, they just don't want to play back at you. Maybe they're just chilling. They only want to play aces. Maybe they're just too scared to put money in the pot. Or they just can't comprehend that someone is bluffing. So they always give you respect. But whatever the reason is, most people aren't going to play back at you. But if they start playing back at you, you just have to respect it. Don't get your ego involved. Don't be like, oh, well, Kramer said you have to play like this against nits. Don't do that, because poker is a game of adaptation. Almost more importantly than poker strategy is adaptation. So those are like the two big things. So the next thing, if your sample size isn't very large, for example, you have under 100 hands against someone, be aware that they might not actually be nitty, and your read might be wrong. So what I advise people to do is always gather information and try to color code people as fast as possible once you have some decent data on them. But while I'm giving you these great strategies, you have to remember that your interpretation of their data might be wrong, and you always have to be aware of that. So for example, like I said, if you have something like under 100 hands and you identify someone as nitty, but then the 100th hand rolls around with them and you start to realize, like, okay, now their VP is like 40. Maybe they just weren't paying attention to their screen. Maybe they just had a really bad run of hands for like 30 hands. So that's just something to look out for. Just keep it in mind that at some point you're probably going to mislabel someone. And the reason I say that is because I do it. So surely if you're newer than me to poker, you'll probably do it too. The next thing, which is a very specific example, but one that I think you need to keep in mind. If a nit donks into you or starts showing aggression just randomly, and it's obvious that they're not just probe betting, you should really just give them a lot of respect, and fold a large part of your range, maybe like 2/3 of your range, unless you're like nutted, obviously. But it's just okay to fold when nits show aggression. That's basically the fundamental principle I'm laying out. But the thing I've noticed is that, like I said, in this very specific example, sometimes nits will just like randomly donk bet to protect their hand, even though it's like very unsound in terms of poker fundamentals. They'll just be convinced that they just need to protect their hand. So let's say we have oh gosh, it's going to be hard to come up with an example off the top of my head. Okay, so here's an example of like a nit calls from the big blind and it comes like 4-5-7, and they donk bet 3/4 pot and we have pocket nines. I might even fold pocket nines. I'll to be honest, I'll probably call one street, but I'm moving forward with a lot of caution, because they're if they bet something like pot 3/4 pot, and then they do it again on the turn, they're basically saying I have 2 pair or a set and I don't want to get drawn out on. And that's what nits will do. They really hit, fundamentally, what is a nit? They're someone who's afraid to lose money and put money in the pot. So it's like they really don't want to lose money because they don't want to get drawn out on. So they're betting strong. And so if a nit is doing that, you just need to show them a lot of respect. And I have lost a good amount of pots just because I'm just like, I was thinking dogmatically, like I tell you guys not to do, and just thinking, oh, well, like donk bets are weak. That was a belief in my head. And I would say, well, I'm just going to call him down and try to outplay him, or try to like, I'm just going to play the strong part of my range and even the medium part of my range. And he should respect that I'm calling, but that's just not how they think. And so you just need to respect them. And then this is going to be the last tip of the video. Just because we're opening our range doesn't mean it's time to play like Viffer, which, I just wrote that down. I don't even know if Viffer has a really high, crazy 3-bet frequency, but I know he's a crazy player, or he was a crazy player if he doesn't play anymore. But opening our range means we start to 3-bet the not premium but still strong hands. So I'm going to use the King Jack offsuit again. So for example, I tell you guys to 3-bet more. Does that mean you need to start 3-betting 3-5 offsuit? No, it means you need to start betting things like 3-betting things like King Jack offsuit, because it's still a strong hand, but it doesn't mean we're opening up to like all of our range that we're just 3-betting all the time. And I wrote this down in my notes, and that also includes things like Queen 7 suited. Shout out to Ryan. I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, we're not going to start overplaying Queen 7 suited because we think that these guys are weak. It's like, even if they are, does that mean we need to start punishing them by trying to play Queen 7? It's like, no, dude. Queen 7 is still not the play. So that is the video. That is the 5NL Masterclass for beating the nits. Hopefully you guys got some great information on this. Like I said, I've been playing I've been playing 5NL lately. Just trying to get my confidence back up, get my bankroll back up. In the last like week, I've gone from like 180 to like 220 or something like that, which in terms of like actual dollar amount, that's not that much, but in terms of like big blinds and also not losing money to the rake, that's pretty darn good for 5NL. So the reason I say that is because I've learned a lot of important things about beating the nits at 5NL. So hopefully this will help you guys out. I do ask that you like and comment and subscribe. Let me know again what you like or dislike about the video. Also, as I always say, I've got resources in the description below if you want a checklist where I give like my absolute best tips for beating the micros. I recommend you check that out. Also, if you're going to buy PokerTracker, definitely use my link below. And same with if you want to play on America's Card Room, which is where I play. I would ask that you also use my link by clicking below and signing up through that. So that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support on this channel. It really means a lot. And I will see you in the next video.